Hello, my friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family. So, guys, we have a new species of ancient human discovered in the Philippines. And the human family tree is just getting bigger all the time. When we look at it, if we take a look at where the discovery was, it's right here, and it's in Luzon, which is northeast of Manila in the Philippines. Of course, the Philippines are a series of islands. And when we look at the human family tree, from what they will acknowledge, it's pretty big, and it's getting bigger all the time as they keep making more and more discoveries. And then, of course, there's a lot of things, as you and I know, that have been left out of this mix as well. And so this new one is being called Homo luzonensis. And this is yet another branch in the big human family tree. So this is a small-bodied hominin, and it lived on the island of Luzon at least 50 to 67,000 years ago. And so the hominin identified from a total of 7 teeth and 6 small bones. So some people will have a problem with just that. I mean, they're making a whole new species out of 7 teeth and 6 small bones. And when we take into account that there's been hundreds, if not thousands, of bodies of giants, per se, that have been discovered through the years and that have been dispatched, according to some, to the middle of the ocean, and to others in such places as the Vatican and other places such as the Smithsonian, deeply hidden away to keep out of the public's eye. So here they're telling us that we have a new ancestor here, or a new relative. Let's put it as relative. And this landmark discovery announced in Nature on Wednesday makes Luzon the third Southeast Asian island in the last 15 years to bear signs of unexpectedly ancient human activity. For a long, long time, the Philippine Islands have been more or less left out, said study co-author and project leader Armand Mijares, an archaeologist at the University of the Philippines, Diliman, and a National Geographic grantee. But H. Luzonensis flips the script, and it continues to challenge the outdated idea that the human line neatly progressed from less advanced to more advanced species. The new discovery made me thrilled, says Yosuke Kaifu, a paleoanthropologist at Tokyo's National Museum of Nature and Science, who was not part of the new study, but said so via email. It further highlights remarkable diversity of archaic, primitive hominins once present in Asia in a way beyond my expectation. Aida Gomez Robles, a paleoanthropologist at University College London who reviewed the study before publication, is hesitant to unequivocally say that the find represents a new species, but she adds that all possibilities to explain the unusual fossils are equally intriguing. It's absolutely one of the most important findings that will be out in a number of years, she says. Digging deeper into Asia's past, decades ago, the story of Asia seemed far more straightforward, if incomplete. Paleoanthropologists knew that archaic hominins such as Homo erectus ventured over land bridges into parts of what is now Indonesia nearly 1 million years ago, but farther east it was thought that these hominins ran into ocean currents considered impassable without boats. So Luzon seemed especially difficult for ancient hominins to reach, as they had never been connected to the mainland by land bridges. So archaeologists thought that digging into deeper, older layers of soil wouldn't yield much. When Mijares first excavated Callao Cave in 2003, he found 25,000-year-old evidence of human activity. But he didn't dig any deeper than about 4 feet down. Most Southeast Asian archaeologists would only excavate cave sites up to 2 meters, and they would stop. That all changed in 2004 when researchers unveiled Homo floresiensis, and that's the one that's known as the Hobbit. And that inhabited the Indonesian island of Flores until about 50,000 years ago. Inspired, Mijares returned to Callao Cave in 2007 to literally dig deeper. And the team excavated more than 5 feet of clay below where they had stopped digging in 2003 with no fossils in sight. But then they found a layer of breccia, a type of rock formed from a jumble of other materials. Tantalizingly, this layer contained fragments of bone that had washed into the cave a long time ago. At first, the bones seemed to include only animals such as deer and pigs, but under closer inspection, one piece stood out, a near-complete foot bone that looked human. The team sent the fossil to Philip Piper, a co-author of the new study, who was looking through the animal remains. He called me up and said, "Hello, mate, you got human remains," Mihaly says. And I said, "Really? Then we'll go grab a beer." Mihaly and his colleagues unveiled the 67,000-year-old fossil, which they tentatively suggested belonged to a small-bodied member of Homo sapiens, making it perhaps the oldest sign of our species anywhere in the Philippines at the time. But Mihaly suspected it might actually belong to a new species, maybe even a Luzon analog to Homo floresiensis. The team needed more fossils to be sure. As you see over here, showing where they're putting it in the family tree. And so you really have to ask yourself, why is there such diversity of species, humanoid species that have been on this planet for so long? And we're the only ones, apparently, that are still here. And then exactly, what really are we then, if that's the case, as we look at this family tree? Now we know about the Denisovans. And of course, we know about the Neanderthals. Well, Homo sapiens bred with Neanderthals, and they also bred with Denisovans. So we were able to breed with these. Some people think that all three of these lines come out of Heidelbergensis, which is right here. And then, of course, we have Homo erectus, which goes quite a bit farther back. And there are those that think that Homo erectus is really what the Anunnaki tweaked to create relatively modern humans. And when you look at it, it's all very, very interesting and very fascinating. So, at what point, if the Anunnaki truly are real, did they start tinkering with mankind? And so, the modern thought is probably Homo erectus or Homo habilis. And it's just fascinating stuff to think about. And then, of course, they don't have anything on here about our very long-headed friends that we've talked about in the past as well. And some people call them Homo capenensis. So it's fascinating to look at this. Why all these differences? Why all these dead ends? Is this, truly evolution at work? Is this, a mad scientist's lab with so many different species that said, "Oh, yeah, we could do a little bit better. Let's tweak this. Let's tweak that. Okay, this one's a little bit more intelligent. Okay, this one maybe is too intelligent." So what is really the case? What is really going on here, my friends? As we see Nova again, 7 teeth, 5 hand and foot bones, and a partial femur, and we have ourselves a new type of humanoid. And also in a place where they didn't think there would be anybody. So I have to ask you, if life has been on the Philippines, which is a area that's, it's a whole bunch of islands. And we have seen, these gigantic cataclysms, every 12,000 years or so, if you're following the line of thought that many have been talking about, and including Douglas Vogt recently, and the Diehold Foundation, and of course, there's so many out there that think that we get this massive destruction every 12,000 years or so, and perhaps a smaller one about every 5,000 or 6,000 years. And we do know that there's evidence of that, but then you still have these humanoids way out there on these islands. How did they get there? How did they get there? And how did they survive, massive, massive earth changes that come every so often, or is that part of what wiped them out at different times? It's a very, very interesting thing to look at, and there's so many pieces to this puzzle. And this is, again, another article talking about the same thing. I'll have all these for you, all these links. Fossils are filling out the human family tree. Yeah, the tree is much bigger than many of us had thought, especially if we go back like 30 years or so. As you see, this is a Neanderthal skeleton right here with the pronounced ridge line right here, the brow line. So, what truly is the case? What's really the story? And what about all these giants that we hear about? And, we do have fossils of some giants. We have fossils of Gigantopithecus, which, to me, it always made me scratch my head why nobody could say that Gigantopithecus is Bigfoot. But more than that, and we do have a lot of teeth and bones from that, which just happened to be this big, hairy, ape-like, humanoid-like being. That could be, 8 to 12 feet tall and maybe weigh as much as 1,000 or 1,200 pounds. And this we have bones about. So we have bones of, so we know that was real. And looking here at giants, and this right here, this picture right here, that's Michael Tellinger, who is a very interesting man. And he's the founder of Ubuntu, and this is a real footprint. I believe him. Yeah, he says this is a real footprint, human footprint. Look at the size of that thing. What do you think? That's probably almost 4 foot long foot. How big would a being be? Well, let's say the average man is 6 feet tall and has a 12-inch foot, then this would be something that would be about 48 feet tall. Wow. Do you think there were humanoids on this planet 48 feet tall? And, there's been so many cases, so many photos of giants being unearthed as we look at this guy putting one together. And some of these are like this, I believe. If I remember right, this was out of Japan. It was just an art, a piece of art. It was not really an actual fossil. But there are a lot of them that were supposed to be fossils, and even some photographed from the 1800s, and people standing next to them, and then those bodies, they just disappeared. They just disappeared. Of course, we have the biblical reference to the giants. We hear about the Anunnaki. We see the Anunnaki in the Sumerian reliefs, and they're way bigger than humans. They look to be 12, 16 feet tall or bigger. We know that there's giant DNA in us. We see that, as we can see here in these photos. So what really is going on with the human family tree? 9-foot giant in Utah grave. And so we have this armor right here for a knight. And, this gentleman would have to be around 8 feet tall or better to fit in it. We have this photo of a fossilized Irish giant taken at a London rail depot, December 1895. And, this is what there was a ton of, and especially in this time frame. And these all went missing. They were buried. They were, sunk in the middle Atlantic Ocean, supposedly by the Smithsonian, the big majority of them. So this was 12 foot 2 inches tall, weighed 2 tons, had 6 toes on its right foot. We've seen that before. 6-toed giants, 6 fingers, double sets of teeth. There's another giant skull next to a Homo sapiens sapiens. And these remains were supposedly discovered by Saudi oil industry technicians. He or she stood between 15 and 20 feet tall. And so the weathering it was consistent with the technician's description that the skull was originally found partially uncovered by the winds. And here you see a foot, human foot, in a footprint that looks pretty damn real, fossilized footprint. This is in the Cleveland National Forest. Giant femur on display. Giant thumb bone. And yes, the Smithsonian is a black hole. There's the giant jawbone, Another giant footprint. There's tons of giant footprints out there. Tons. Glen Rose, Texas. So one of the other interesting things is that we have fossils in Texas that show giant footprints like these, humanoid footprints, right next to dinosaur footprints. So what does that tell you? And then we have these skulls. These skulls, these have been found now to be another unknown species. Now, they're not announcing this one because then they'd have to point to the Vatican and they'd have to point to the 13 families that we know run everything. So, giants are in every legend around the world. And we have so many cases, so many old-time photos, so many footprints. Bones, there still are some. But, of course, a lot fall into the black pit of the Smithsonian. So what really, really is the story with human origins and the human family tree? I look forward to your comments, my friends. As always, thumbs up, support the channel. Please do subscribe to both channels. And click the bell so you get all the notifications. I know a lot of people are not getting any notifications. And that's happening on all of the channels that are very much like this one. And as always, share. Let's keep waking people up. Let's keep learning together. God bless, my friends. Namaste.